Hi, my name is Ching, and welcome back to Data Structures in C++. In the last lecture, we discussed how pointers work and different operators for them. Now let's discuss how arrays work and especially how the indexing works inside arrays. Here, this statement is initializing an array that contains 8 chars or characters. The curly brackets are used to initialize the array. On the right side, we see how the array is organized in the memory. In the previous lecture, we discussed taking this view memory as a very long array of bytes. Each of them have their own index in memory, and we call them addresses. They're usually viewed in the hex format, but you can just think of them as integers. Just pay attention to the last digit in the address. Since each character takes 1 byte in memory, this address takes 8 contiguous bytes in memory. The first statement defines the variable data as a char array, but it is basically a pointer. That means the variable data is a pointer to the first element in the array. Then we assign data to a char pointer p1. We just said that data is a pointer, so p1 is going to be pointing to the same address. As shown on the right side, both p1 and data are pointing to the first element in the array, and the address is 0. Now here's the tricky part. We define another pointer to a char called p2, but p2 is equal to p1 plus 4. If you look at the chart, you start at the first element, A, and you move 4 steps. And that is exactly what we want, but what is actually happening is not as it seems. The 4 doesn't mean counting 4 bytes forward in memory. It actually means counting 4 objects forward. Note that both P1 and P2 are pointer types, but their specific pointer type is pointing to a char. So the 4 means counting 4 chars from P1 instead of 4 bytes. Now the question is, what if the type of the pointer is not just 1 byte? Now we define an array of integers starting from 1 to 8, and we know typically an integer type takes 4 bytes in memory. That means the variable data is a pointer to the first element in the array. So data is the same as P1, but every element is an integer which occupies 4 bytes. On the right side, instead of 1 byte per row, now we put 4 bytes per row for easier illustration. So starting from the first integer, it occupies the 4 bytes in the first row, going from the address 0 to 3 in the memory. We look at each row as a 4-byte object and say this object's address is the address of its first byte, which is 0 in this example. Then the second integer 2 takes the second row and its address is 4, and so on. The next statement assigns data to an integer pointer, p1. For the last statement, we assign p1 plus 4 to another integer pointer, p2. Well, what does that mean? As we said, the system already knows the type of p1 and p2. They're pointing to integers. So when you say p1 plus 4, you're counting 4 integers forward in memory instead of 4 bytes. That means p2 should be pointing to the 5th element in the array. So if you try to print out p2 minus p1, it will give you 4 instead of 16. It is because p2 and p1 are all pointers to integers. We just count how many integers are from p2 to p1. But p1 and p2 must have the same pointer type. If they're not pointing to the same type, the system won't know how to count the objects between them. We're going to see why this matters because it's going to be used to index arrays without worrying about the bytes. So far, we just discussed how pointer arithmetic in an array works. In summary, it counts objects instead of bytes. That makes it very intuitive to index an array by counting objects. The first statement defines an array of integers from 1 to 8, and every element takes 4 bytes in memory. For the second statement, we get the first element in the array using the index 0. Then we get the index 4 in the array, which is going to be the fifth element since the array index starts from 0. So why does the index work that way? The index is simply counting how many objects to move forward from the beginning of the array. We just mentioned that the variable data is just a pointer to the first element in the array. That means if we dereference it, we'll get the first element in data, which is 1. Here, D1 will get the same value as the first element in data. Then the element 5 in the array will be assigned to D2 because we count 4 integers forward in memory, starting from the first element in the array. Keep in mind that the two statements at the bottom are the same as the two statements at the top. Then why do we care about this? We know that the bottom two statements are just to show you how the array indexing works, but the top two statements are much cleaner to use. This is called syntactic sugar in computer science. Pretty sweet, huh? When we're creating arrays, we have two ways to do that. We can either create an automatic array or a dynamic array. First of all, what kind of number can you put in the square brackets here? We know the system memory is limited, and this is going to create an array in the stack. But the stack is a lot smaller than the heap, so you probably cannot even put 1 million in the brackets. That means you cannot always create large automatic arrays. Alternatively, you can create a dynamic array using the new operator in the object type, followed by square brackets with the array size. The dynamic array is a lot larger if there is a large contiguous piece of memory in the heap. There are some handy ways to initialize automatic arrays. You can specify the size of the array in the square brackets and you list all the elements in the curly brackets. Or you can skip the size in the square brackets. Or you can specify the size and not assign any value to it. Also, you can put an equal sign before the curly brackets. That works for all the ways we just explained. There are also some ways to initialize dynamic arrays using the new operator and the star. The curly brackets will work the same way as the automatic arrays. So after we've defined an array, how are we going to pass it into a function? We know that an array will define a pointer. That means when we pass an array into a function, we're actually passing in a pointer. In this example, it is an integer pointer. Here are the possible arguments to put inside the function. You either pass in the array as a pointer or put square brackets after the argument name and specify the size, but the size isn't required. Keep in mind that all three formats are doing the same thing essentially, passing in the pointer of an array into a function. So far, we only talked about one-dimensional arrays. Now let's take a quick look at two-dimensional arrays or 2D arrays. 2D arrays are indexed by two indices and are often used to describe a matrix with rows and columns. Similarly, there are two ways to create 2D arrays, automatic and dynamic. In automatic creation, we use two sets of square brackets to define the size of each dimension. In dynamic creation, we first create a one-dimensional array of pointers. Then, each pointer will point to another one-dimensional array, which itself is created using the new operator. Since we used the new operator multiple times in creating this 2D array, it means this array will take one contiguous space in memory. The 2D array is indexed by row and column values. Following this line, we can extend from 2D arrays to multiple dimensional arrays, but we will stop here. So, in summary, we discussed how array indexing works in memory. We also discussed how to create and pass arrays into functions. We briefly talked about 2D arrays, but we will focus on one-dimensional arrays in this course. Specifically, we are going to use one-dimensional arrays to implement stacks and queues very soon. This concludes today's lecture. Have fun and happy coding. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.